Did they reveal what GFJ means?
Yeah,
it's the name of the guy.
Yeah, the company's founder's initials.
Chaco or something?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Yep. So it wasn't a Mr. Zenith then?
No, there was no Mr. Zenith, sorry.
No Mr. Zenith. I don't know. Could have been.
Just
right,
like there was Johnny Rolex?
Johnny
Mr. Omega.
Oh my God.
Hans Omega?
Here we go. Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly podcast. I feel like this is like Schrodinger's podcast. Schrodinger's watches. At some point, tariffs may or may not apply to the watch you're wearing right now. It's kind of guesswork or how much they may be. That's the only political statement I'm going to make. I promise. I'm
Why
lying.
am I the only one not worried about this? Everyone seems totally threatened by this.
You wore all the watches already.
No. I'm usually worried about things that the watch industry isn't worried about. And then it turns out they should have been. I'm not worried about the tariffs at all.
So what are you worried about for the watch industry?
Oh, gosh, I should have been prepared for that. Creative meltdown. I'm worried about the watch industry, being like the snake that's consuming its own tail, and at some point there's no more tail left. That's what I'm worried about. Increased global costs as something to make people avoid buying luxury watches doesn't really make sense. People are going to want these things anyways. They'll find a way of getting it. Also, I think that watch prices have increased so much over the last couple of years that if they just absorb the tariffs, it's like nothing happened.
Yeah, but the question is, if you're having to absorb a tariff of 100 and whatever percent it is for your Chinese components, then, well, the other thing is,
if you're the unlucky watchmaker in the United States that has to weather the next couple of months, I mean, it's tragic, but this is not exactly the majority of the industry.
It is also, as I understand it, a bit like what happened over here with Brexit, which is we introduced all of these customs rules that didn't exist for 30 years, but realized we didn't actually have any people that understood how to enforce them or how to collect the money or any of the computer systems to do the work, because everything was based on an absolute minimum. As I understand it, they're not actually collecting that many tariffs anyway, because the system's simply not there to actually engage in the process.
That sounds like what's going to happen in the U.S., something like that.
That does sound
Elon's going to be behind it, okay?
Well, they're going to collect the money. It's just not going to go to the government. They're really good at collecting the money. Now, they're really bad at properly spending it. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, in other shock news, Ripley's had an earthquake in America. Not necessarily surprising, but we've had wildfires just near me in Scotland.
Good for you.
Some people may be surprised that we can set things on fire in Scotland.
We thought it'd be cool.
We can do this too if we add enough petrol to every bit of thing that might burn. We can start a fire over here.
And then it rained again. So that's the advantage. The advantage of wildfires over here is they do happen. They don't tend to last too long because it does eventually rain. Do
they even scramble the firefighters, or do they just look and say, "Oh, there's a storm coming in 20 minutes. It's going to be out by the time we get there."
By the time we get there and set up the fancy truck, it'll have rained. Yeah, no, it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks of sunshine we've had over here. There we go. Anyway, there we have it. Right, let's talk some watches. Watches and Wonders 2025 recap. Okay. This is Ariel, an article. Regurgitation is both an art form and a business strategy. Discuss.
Well, it's a business strategy in the sense that brands have just heavily leaned into it as the premise behind most of their big products, as well as the bulk of much of the brand personality. It's an art form because brands are no longer simply copying old watches, but they're trying to make new watches which have the essence of old watches, that maybe remind you of old watches, that maybe never were old watches. So you have all these designers playing around with various ways of bringing back old things without directly bringing back old things. And we see both of those things in full force. The vast majority of the watches that we saw at the show fall under one of those categories. A little bit of more originality outside of Watches and Wonders, but given the fact that Watches and Wonders has its own distinct list of exhibitors, this recap really has to focus on that. So that's in a nutshell what I meant with that title.
David, did you feel you were kind of, this could have been Watches and Wonders, okay, it didn't exist in the current form 10 years ago? Does it increasingly just feel like Groundhog Day?
Not really, not to me. What's interesting is that what changed is a brand like Hublot that really stands out to me as a brand that started to regurgitate a bit too much and is apparently failing to reinvent itself at this point, which is exactly the polar opposite of what Hublot used to be about. And if I look back at the last 5 years, all they've been doing is exactly the same thing over and over again. So to me, that is a bit of a surprise. And I don't think Hublot is a brand mature enough to be able to afford itself the luxury of just repeating itself over and over again. So I have my fingers crossed for some more excitement from them. But overall, I think this year was not too bad. 2 or 3 years ago, it was much, much worse. This year, I think it was A-okay for me as far as diversity is concerned in terms of watches.
And so is this just that brands, once they establish themselves, once they establish something that sells, it's easier to just keep selling the same thing and iterating, and that really the only new stuff is going to come through, not necessarily from the micro brands, because the easiest way for a micro brand to be successful is also to copy something that's successful, but it's going to come from your burner-on types, those that can start pitched at a really high end, know they're going to sell their watches because of who they are and the contacts they have. And that's really where you're going to see the originality, is the one-man band starting up, doing its own thing. Or is there hope within certain big brands in the industry that they do recognize this problem and are going to come up with something original?
It's a recognized problem, but I did not mean to suggest that regurgitation is a bad thing. Maybe I'm approaching it with cynicism, but it's selling. A lot of the products are nice. It is as though AI is basically feeding off of one another and the echo chamber is just becoming more echoey. So there's a lot of that, but it is satisfying to a lot of people. And that's why I said it's become a business strategy as well as an art form. Like, that's just what they're leaning into. Yes, there are brands such as Hublot, and David is correct that this is the opposite of what we expect from them. I'm not necessarily saying this is a criticism, it's just an observation. But again, it still is able to come up with desirable products at a whole range of price points that we want. I like originality, but apparently the market is not into buying that right now. And original products take a long time to get people educated about them, to become aware of them. So yes, this is a watch industry playing it safe, doing it easy. Maybe it's not as impressive to people like us, but we don't represent the average buyer. They're not as bored or jaded as we are.
So who was the last big brand that you were like, yeah, that's different? Is it Hublot 25 years ago or whenever the big bang came out, Ripley?
No, I mean, I think some brands have little moments of something. Like, look at even last year, Hublot had that ridiculous watch that looked like a large glass gentleman wearing budgie smugglers. And that was totally new.
The MP10?
Yeah. Really cool. Not like anything else. And as David mentioned, this year, it was honestly like all heritage pieces or like throwbacks to famous things slightly tweaked. Some of it was just, they made the same watch they did years ago. Now it's like the rebirth piece. Others, it was now you can get 5 transparent versions of this other watch we make. And they didn't really have that one model where it was like, well, at least they're pushing the needle forward in that regard. But this isn't just with the watch industry. Look at like the film and TV industry. Think about how many things are a spin-off, a remake, a set within the universe. It's way easier to sell people something they already like than to try to convince them something totally new is cool. And, it like Ariel said, it is a business strategy. This wouldn't be done with such prevalence in so many different industries if it wasn't ultimately financially lucrative for the companies doing it. That said, if without also pushing the designs forward in some capacity, we get to what Ariel's talking about with the snake eating its own tail and eventually running out of tail. It's totally okay, I think, for brands to kind of play the greatest hits and iterate upon these classic designs because this is what people want. But if they're also not creating something new at the same time, then the stagnation begins to set in after enough years. So I don't think, a brand has to do all one or the other, but I think maintaining that you need to do both, one to cater to the people who want the thing that's existed for 50 years, and then others to, cater to the people who want something new and to actually progress the industry. I think you have to have both. And right now, some brands are sort of forgetting that innovation side.
So when do we think this will change? When do we think we're going to see innovation? You're just not going to see it at big shows. It's just going to drop throughout the year. It's going to be, individual releases that the brands don't put too much into because they don't want to be seen to be innovating and then it being a failure. Or
the IWC perpetual chronograph, perpetual calendar performance chronograph, that was not what I was expecting when I first saw the headline of that. That's pretty modern. I'd kind of love to see that design language work its way back into the Aqua Timer collection, but that was probably the most unexpected release from the brand. Everything else I feel was, even if it was objectively lovely, a bit safe, but that is a very modern watch. It's not a design language we haven't seen, but I think it's, it's sort of a contemporary reimagination of what is this old, long-standing complication in the brand's catalog.
So if we go to the article which you gentlemen penned of the top 10 watches from this year's, and we simply go through them, and give it a rating of newness, regurgitation, good thing, bad thing. So you're first up, I don't know if this was in any particular order, but Rolex Land Dweller, how does that fit into your thoughts about this, Ariel?
I mean, visually speaking, it's almost entirely regurgitatory. Yes, the movement is brand new. I mean, look, there's an entire article I published in the last few days about the Land Dweller and what I think Rolex got right about it and not so right about it. The movement is brand new. The name is new, but it's almost as though Rolex said, hey, AI, make a new Rolex that looks like it was built from other Rolexes. And that's basically, this is what it would give you. Or one thing that it could give you.
David?
I think that's novel as it can get.
David is looking like he's already given up. He's like, I give up.
I mean, how do I look at this positively? I mean, I think it's interesting. I'm not sure if we should. If we look at the Sky Dweller and if we look at the Yachtmaster 2, those were two, very bold, very unique looking watches with the engineering to support their uniqueness in a way, right? A special dial layout, special functionality, all the rest of it. I think that's more on brand, but I can also respect the fact that Rolex has basically put all its might, and that's why they were so quiet over the last almost a decade in terms of new movements, because they were working on this new escapement, which is a huge deal. So yeah, I think the outside is familiar, but there's only so much that you can expect people to take in at any given instance, right? So here it's a brand new escapement, new movement, and it's a new look for a Rolex. It's not new generally speaking, but it's very new for Rolex. We haven't had something like this in freaking decades. So many of the Land Dweller customers were not even alive the last time Rolex sold something like this. So in that sense, it is new.
Okay, TAGHeuer, Formula One Solargraph, all it changes the movement. Yeah,
I mean, this is a perfect example of regurgitation done well, but still almost a textbook example of regurgitation as a strategy and an art form.
Okay, Riemann Weil Freelancer complete calendar.
Again, they refined the Freelancer case, and it's a little bit nicer. This is a look that, I don't know, 100 years ago nearly, you would have seen on a watch dial. Definitely popular in the mid-20th century, this sort of triple calendar layout. There's been any number of watches. Here, Riemann Weil comes in with a great value proposition. There's actually some good innovation. I love how they did these pushers on the side of the case to completely replace the inset pusher that you need a tool for, and you can use your finger, but it's also flush. So there's some innovation. But again, no one's going to look at this and be like, ooh, fresh design.
Okay, Ulysses Nardin Diver Air.
Well, it looks like it's been eating itself. It's the most anorexic watch there. It's beautiful, though.
I mean, this is sort of like kind of the theme with all of them. It's like new tech, but it repackaged in a visual presentation that is familiar to people. You know, the Rolex is an oyster quartz with this crazy new movement. The Solar Graph is a solar version of an old F1. This is the diver we all know and love, but it is uber skeletonized, made from all new materials, new movement, weighs less than a tennis ball, all of that. So this is sort of the theme for a lot of this. It's an old design expressed in a new manner with all the other new stuff, but it's not going to visually alienate anyone unless you really just don't like skeletonized pieces.
So is the story of this year's Watches and Wonders then the movements rather than the designs? And is that the watch industry eating itself because Joe Schmo consumer probably doesn't care that much about the movement? They probably care more about what it actually looks like. They're not bothered that it's got this fancy escapement or is 45 grams or
but the
is
movement
whatever.
Is the ultimate signal. That's why we have so many skeletonized watches, not because it's pretty, but seeing that mechanical movement is the ultimate signal. This is not a smartwatch. This is not a fitness tracker. This is something else. I wear this because I like it, because I have culture or disposable income or whatever you want to say. So I think that that's really how to interpret this sort of obsession with skeletonization.
Okay. Nomos Club Sport Neomatic World Timer mishmash or something genuinely interesting?
Well, they've regurgitated it. Probably was their most popular in-house movement into a different collection with a slightly different layout. That it works well. Again, the Ingenieur. This is not the year that IWC came back, brought it back, but it brought it back as a reinterpretation of the original that was sort of never really made in the right way, and they made it lovely, and there's black ceramic and gold, and they're beautiful, but no one is claiming that there's anything innovative here. It's just a very pretty product that, again, is meant to be reminiscent of the 1970s.
In the chat, for those watching on YouTube Live, Breaking News Beats makes this point. Hopefully Rolex or somebody will make something like the Zenith Defy or Frederick Constant with a silicon balance that took out like 75 movement parts. Now, I remember putting my name down for one of those Zeniths that then never made the light of day. TAGHeuer also had the isograph, which lasted about 5 minutes before they realised it also didn't work.
It's coming back, and probably with a new name.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, let's hope we do a better job. Because I remember seeing it going in the shop stores, going and looking at it, and then went back the following day, and it gone.
The Phantograph.
They'd had a phone call, complete vaporware. They'd had a phone call. So he'd taken them all off the shelves. And the Zenith Defy, great idea, sounded lovely, but just didn't work. Is everybody now just so nervous about doing something that really does push the boundaries because actually there's a type of innovation that watch companies are good at? But
the question also is, how much does the average consumer care about and understand?
Yes.
If you walked up to all the Rolex Daytona owners in the world and asked them what the little subdials do on their dials, I wonder how many of them would be able to explain. So why would you want to put millions, if not tens of millions of Swiss francs and years of development into something people will not understand? The question is, do you have the bragging rights? Does it look or sound expensive and complicated and difficult to replicate? Yes, then people might like it. The question is, how little of an effort can you put into something where you can still get that message into the heads of the masses of people you want to buy your watches, right? So I don't think, one of the reasons why we see, less inventive watches these days is because brands or engineers don't have what it takes. It's mainly because the customer doesn't have what it takes to fully appreciate those things.
You just don't appreciate us, customers. You just don't appreciate us. I do like the idea of taking a camera crew round somewhere, like it was a Goodwood Festival last weekend, so lots of Rolexes and other watches, and going out to people going, can you tell me what that dial at 9 o'clock does? and just see how many people do know. I think it feels like a kind of game we would play. Tell us what your dials actually information they are trying to impart. IWC Engineer Automatic, they basically slapped 18-karat gold on it. Does that even count as a new release?
It's so nice, though. It feels so good.
It's really nice.
It's like Homer Simpson drool.
Look, when this watch first came out, it was not universally loved. The first thing I said to IWC is, I know not everyone's going to like it. Give it a few years. It's like 3 years old now. I think it's really, really nice looking. Both this gold and the black ceramic one. I can't speak for everyone else on the team, but they seem to be, they're just very compelling, very desirable. Not insanely expensive, of course, not cheap, but I really think that this watch is a hit, and I'm glad that they put the investment into it. As David said, the investment needs to be in some show-off thing, like on the outside of the watch. The inside, as long as it works, that's fine. And that was the problem with the silicone ones. When it came to real-world vibration shock movement, it caused a lot of problems. They operated better in sort of a stable laboratory environment.
On David's desk, basically.
And as Ariel mentioned, people still want to see the movement, and so the Gold Ingenieur has a display case back. So it's sort of kind of stepping in those two worlds where, for the person who just wants the pretty thing that feels good and they can see the mechanics, great, you have it all here. It's a very, very easy to like package, and it feels incredible. So this is an instance where there's really nothing new, but it's done in a well-considered manner and executed very, very nicely. And the end product is a really, really nice piece.
And you know what? I don't even remember what movement the Engineer has. I really don't even remember, and I don't care.
Well, you see, that's kind of my point is, at the end of the day, everyone's spending all this time and money worrying about the movements, but what we actually want is something that looks really nice. I could make it out of quartz. Take my Panerai, put a quartz movement in it, but just make it look nice.
Well, Rick, of course you want that. That'd be way more reliable than what you're currently rocking.
Yeah, okay, and you could make it 1,000 meters worth. Does the IWC gold IWC? Does it feel like gold?
It is gold.
Has it got heft? I know it is gold, but has it just got
hollow.
that heft? Has it hollow bars of gold?
Funny. I'm not sure what brand it was. We were with one brand. I will try and think of it. And they had two different, maybe it was Baume & Mercier, and they had two different gold watches. And one was like gold, which was quite expensive, and the other was gold, and it was way less expensive.
Was that
and they were both solid gold watches. No. It was Baume & Mercier.
Oh, okay.
And it was so funny. It was basically like, if you want the 4-figure gold watch, you will get, and actually our contact person there, she could quote the exact gram weight of gold in either of those watches, which was very impressive. So these days, what brands will do, and I'm not saying IWC, but basically almost all of them, and it's very rare for you to find a new solid gold watch and a gold bracelet that actually feels really, truly very heavy. And if you go back and, maybe you meet someone who has like a 15, 20-year-old all gold watch, from way back when, then those are heavy, really very heavy watches. And these new ones, you can really feel that there's been some games, being played with gold sometimes. If you look at, I saw again there was one of these open case back shots from one of the brands, and it was part of the launch pictures, and you could see that the case was hollowed out. So of course the case back covers it up, but they removed the case back to take a picture of the movement inside, and you could see these deep grooves running along the periphery of the case for no obvious reason other than to remove gold.
Rolex does that well, if we're being honest, and given the number of watches they make. But yeah, if you open up any gold Rolex and look at its steel equivalent, it's not just the same thing rendered in gold. There's a pretty sizable space for the movement, whereas the steel one just basically sits flush against the case.
Oh, that's interesting. Also, but to Roxy's credit, they also use gold spring bars, right? I saw someone,
and
I think
their gold is the
just
most plumb of many manufacturers. I saw someone X-raying an AP, a Patek, and a Rolex, and the Patek and the AP, they all came up, certainly at 18, as they should be, but the Rolex that was closer to 19. So if we really want to get, I don't think anyone's knocking Rolex for the amount of gold. And to David's point, they're almost the one brand that works counter to it. You feel an old gold Rolex bracelet, it's relatively relatively light, and then you feel a new one. It's like Thor's hammer. And the whole thing is just a big solid brick. So they're kind of the one brand where the newer you buy, the like heavier the gold watch you get, despite there being a bit of play in the case.
Now I really want gold. Thank you, Ripley.
Get heavy gold, Ariel.
Gold.
I really want some.
Feel like a conquistador. Gotta have that gold.
I really want to compare a gold Rolex opened at the back with a steel gold Rolex the same, and I actually have a look. I don't know if you do some 3D modeling, a 3D scan to just see what the overall volume of watch content is between the two. So yeah, if somebody would like to loan us, who could? If somebody would like to loan us a gold Rolex
and a steel one, we need
a steel one.
Our new sweepstakes. Let Rick destroy your gold Rolex.
Yeah.
For internet views.
You see, you've got to think that if you did that, you probably if you timed it right, you probably get your money back on internet views destroying an all gold Rolex. That's just the way the internet works these days.
You're going to need an awful lot of views, my friend.
So yeah, IWC gets the big hands up for doing nothing more original than making it gold. Zenith GFJ, which sounds. It was just a weird name, apart from anything else. It sounds like it's something else. I'm not quite sure what it sounds like it is.
You don't want to know what GFJ stands for, though.
Exactly, GFJ.
Oh, no.
It's the GFJ.
It reminds me of, what was the book, like the BFG, like the big friendly,
exactly,
the big friendly giant.
Exactly. Okay, Joseph in the chat's now giving us the $3,241 an ounce. So I don't know how big an ounce of gold is, what it looks like. But do you reckon you could make a gold watch an ounce lighter by hollowing it out? Save yourself $3.5 grand. I don't know if that's in the scales. Zenith. I would just like an explanation as to why we thought this was in the top 10 of releases from Watches and Wonders.
It's really pretty.
Just because it's nice. So
it's really pretty. They got the historic movement. This is all about the movement. They just cased it in a really, really nice manner. I mean, this movement, it's the most awarded movement of all time, like 256 individual chronometer awards. This absolutely destroyed from like the late 40s into the early 60s when they made it. It was all about, like, the caliber 135 was basically created to just own at these chronometer observatory tests. And it did it better than like any other movement. Now, we often forget Zenith even did this because the El Primero is just so mega legendary, but they did have this thing. It fell out of fashion. There were two versions of it, one specifically made for submitting to the observatory trials. It had 135-0. Other than a 10-piece limited edition, which it had vintage movements restored and updated by Kari Voutilainen himself and done as a 10-piece with Phillips Auction House, this movement's kind of been gone from the catalog. So they revised it, updated it for modern standards, along with new finishing. You actually have shock absorbers on the balance staff. The old one didn't because 1940s being what they were. And so it gets -2 + 2 seconds a day. It has a low frequency of 18,000 vibrations per hour. It's a pretty movement. It's a historic movement, but then they cased it in platinum. It's a really lovely case. The dial is lapis and mother of pearl with this cool brickia shape pattern. You can optionally purchase it on a solid platinum bracelet. It's just a really nice execution the movement's not new per se, but it kind of marks the formal revival of it. But this wasn't like they just stuck it in a simple existing design. They actually made it look really pretty to celebrate, the revival of this historic movement for them.
Very well thought out regurgitation.
Yeah, really, really well considered regurgitation. And
what
not
does
pre-digested regurgitation either. It still feels a little more fresh than like that came out from last night.
It's been down there deep. They had to get that one up from way below.
Yeah. Did they reveal what GFJ means?
Yeah,
it's the name of the guy.
Yeah, the company's founder's initials.
Jaco or something?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Yep. So it wasn't a Mr. Zenith then?
No, there was no Mr. Zenith. Sorry.
No Mr. Zenith. Okay, I don't know. Could have been.
Just like there was Johnny Rolex.
Johnny
Mr. Omega.
Hans Omega.
I wonder if we typed into ChatGPT, draws a picture of Hans Omega, the founder of Omega Watches, is the one we come up with. I think we can let ChatGPT run that in the background while we're chatting.
Will he be a Muppet or a Miyazaki character?
Muppet or me? That's like is it me or am I a Muppet? No, what's the song?
No, make him an
Anyway,
action figure. That'd be more interesting.
Yeah, Omega. Yeah, Hans Omega. It says that he's the guy. It's Nakatomi Plaza, Hans Omega. It's all coming together. It's a bad B movie version of Bruce Willis film.
Die Hard? Is that Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard? Okay.
Nakatomi Plaza. Yes, Calatrava again. A regurgitating precious regurgitation.
Yes,
that's we see, and then Grand Seiko.
Well,
okay, people are
going back 1960s, you know, very fine adjusted, ultra fine adjusted, maybe a little bit more engineering, intellectual, but still regurgitation.
Regurgitation.
Also, regurgitation of a watch looks like they released 6 months ago.
Released already.
Yeah.
So in the chat, people are now suggesting the names of brand founders based. So it's John Zenith, in fact. John Zenith was the founder of Zenith. I think
action hero.
Exactly. Yeah, John Zenith, the man who it's like a Reacher. There we go. Chopard Alpine Eagle 41 SL Cadence Airs, a regurgitation rating of out of 10.
Well, it's not a new movement or case.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
it's really like high on the regurgitation scale, but really, really cool.
So good.
Yeah.
Also, you're too cool for school to read the time via hours or minutes, so you only care about the seconds.
And it's incredibly high frequency. Yeah, this is all about the seconds.
When Rolex was just doing 4 hertz, Chopard was doing 8.
Yeah, there we go.
I know, Brigade was doing 10.
I think regurgitation rating is now something we should be putting at the bottom of all articles.
Wow.
Let's
not ask GPT to make a picture of that.
Give us a regurgitation. I can't say it, which is a problem. Okay, right. We're going to do break into some Hitmas maybe shortly, but let's have a look at something. We spoke briefly about this last week. Ripley, you've had a hands-on with the Doxa.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this.
The Doxa extra hand?
The Doxa extra hand. It's interesting.
Okay, first of all, regurgitation rating for the Doxa.
The regurgitation diver. Oh my God.
No, it looks like regurgitation, and then you actually realize that everything's a little bit different. It would have been so easy for them to just make like GMT equipped version of any of the watches they already made. It could have been like the 200 GMT, the 300 GMT, the 300T GMT. Instead, it's the 250T GMT. So it's 1 millimeter larger than the 200. So it comes in at 40. But otherwise, and so you also get an extra 50 meters of water resistance. So from 200 up to 250, hence the 250 part of its name. But then at a quick glance, it otherwise looks the same until you start dissecting it a bit further. It has the same exact dual scale diving bezel, unidirectional, that you'd find on a regular Doxa diver. But then it's got a little chapter ring in there, split colors with the 24-hour insert. And then if you look a bit harder, you realize there's this weird skeletonized 24-hour hand. And that's beyond that, and the 1 millimeter difference in depth rating, that's why it's different. And
you mean the ghost of the minute hand?
That is exactly what it is. Oh my God. There were so many numbers here, Ripley. I was thinking maybe the reference number for these watches should just be all the numbers following one after the other.
Is that a totally different GMT hand on that one?
Yes, so that's the vintage-inspired Shark Hunter, which is making its debut appearance on this 250T GMT.
Hold on a second. That's right. Okay, so I'm looking at the hand. They've filled in the hand, but no, actually, there's an arrow.
No, they have a little arrow-shaped one. So who knows why they've given the vintage-inspired one a different hand? But I think it looks quite nice. Yeah, I like that hand quite a bit.
That's nice. Okay, so yeah, 9 out of 10. Probably actually an 11 out of 10 on the regurgitation rating, but at least a pretty attempt.
Is there an April Fool's joke in coming up with a system for Doxa to help someone select what Doxa to get? We've been talking about this as a team, and it is, for me, I mean, I like Doxa a lot, but it is almost a joke at how many models they make which are similar. And I guess that's not so much of a problem unless you're trying to pick one.
I have to recuse myself from this conversation being a Panerai owner, but
that recuses you?
I find that the idea of I think it makes it simpler. if each brand only made one watch and they all looked basically the same.
No, Doxa does it differently.
And it really didn't matter. It was just like, what color is it? It would make my life easier.
No.
I'm a simple human being at the heart of everything. I just want something with a wee lock on it or a jingly jangly bracelet like the Doxa, and that'll be fine.
Okay, the Panerai ones, it's difficult to tell the models apart. This one, there's redundancy where there's like multiple different models who have some of the same colors and are seemingly a little bit different, but not in all ways. It's sort of like, it's like when you're picking like vehicles in like a racing game, there's no one better one. It's like a slider of different features. And you're like, I don't know which one is better. That's what I'm talking about.
But breaking news is suggesting that Doxa have the Ferrari naming convention, which is just a bunch of numbers and they don't actually mean anything. It's like that sounds like a cool set of numbers.
Oh, these numbers mean nothing. That is true.
However,
nothing.
Also on the live stream, David looks like he's going to try and, if he could jump through the screen to pick a fight with Joseph, suggesting that the Chopard Alpine Eagle is overrated. I think he would. Joseph, do you live near Hungary? That's what we need to know. And can David come and pay you a visit? David's like, why? In the chat, why do you think this is overrated?
But
so
I also
Joseph,
put a sad smiley in there. I was not picking a fight. I was just like, why?
Like, I'm sad that you think it's overrated.
Yeah.
He means overclocked, not overrated. Translation issue.
I will say this about the Doxa. I think probably the most divisive feature of it is the shape of its 24-hour hand on the standard models, not the vintage-inspired Shark Hunter version. I don't love the shape of it from a visual standpoint, but the reason it was done that way is because this is first and foremost supposed to be a dive watch. It simply has the GMT capability as a secondary feature. That's why it doesn't have like a 24-hour bezel, and it's really supposed to be just a secondary feature. It gives you a second time zone, but it still is in no way making any compromises to a regular dive watch. So it's not luminous because you literally will never need to look at the time, under the water to figure out the second time zone on a dive.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, thank God it's 4 p.m. in Paris, So it was done to be as like unobtrusive as possible. If you were diving with it and you hit it with your torch and looked at it, it would still illuminate in the same fashion. It's not really detracting from the minute hand or causing confusion with any of the others. It was really made to be a secondary feature. Does that mean it looks better? No, but like it's nice to know that it was at least intentional rather than just someone walking in on a Tuesday and just doing an outline of the minute hand and transposing it by 30 degrees.
The artist's impression is, no, you weren't supposed to put that. You were supposed to fill that. I meant to colour that in. You took my work away off my desk. I'd only drawn the outline of it.
Just silenced one of the layers in the Photoshop rendering that was the interior of the hand.
I actually clicked the off button for the layer. It was supposed to be tartan coloured or something, and that's what we missed out. We missed out on the originality because somebody switched off the layer on the Photoshop that we're using. Azad has joined us for Hitmas Movie. Good morning, Azad. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. How's everybody?
Not bad, not too shabby. I see that our other two Hitmas Maybeers have been waylaid, so we will continue just with the five of us. So let's do a Hitmas Maybe on this watch. If I can find it on my screen, it has disappeared. Oh, I know why it's disappeared, because I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. We'll try that again. First up, just hit the website, and we're going to review 3 quite unusual watches this week in our Hitmas Maybe. So hands-on, Christian van der Klaauw Grand Planetarium. Is it eccentric as opposed to eccentric? Eccentric? Not enough X, is it? Eccentric meteorite watch. I am a big fan of Christian van der Klaauw. Who had the hands-on with this? Was it yourself, Ariel?
Yes.
Go for it. Tell us all about it.
Well, if you're interested in planetarium watches, this is the watch for you. Christian van der Klaauw is probably the most well-known company when it comes to producing mechanical planetarium watches. And there's a lot of watches on the market that look like planetariums, but are not at all. And 2 brands that come to mind are Jacob and Company with their Astronomia and HYT with, I forget what they call it. But they're like there are very expensive watches that have spinny, twirly things that don't actually indicate anything. As we know, the way we track time is, of course, related to observing celestial objects. So having an astronomical watch that's a planetarium is also very fitting as well as beautiful. What Christian van der Klaauw did is a couple of innovative things here. First of all, they took the entire dial. It has all 8 planets on there. And the eccentric part of the name comes from the fact that rather than spinning in circles, they have these elliptical orbits that more accurately match how they move through our actual solar system. It also tells the time and has an automatic movement. It's not crazy large. It's got this beautiful aventurine dial. Costs just over 200,000 euros. But if you're feeling cheeky and you want to spend another 500,000 euros, well, then you get the new version, which is a limited edition with a actual meteorite case, as well as a dial here that has a meteorite ring and some stones. And this represents the actual asteroid belt, sort of in the middle of our solar system. And it was explained to me that the reason this case cost $500,000, and this is absolutely where emotion plays in, right? Because it's basically just iron and nickel for the most part, is because they had to find a very large case or a piece of meteorite in order to machine for that. So I don't know that for me, I would have gone ahead and spent the full amount there. But I would definitely go ahead and recommend this to people that love these things.
I have a question. If the case is meteorite, does that mean its corrosion resistance is exactly what we would think of with like largely iron?
I think it has to be finished in some way there. I think there's some extra process on it.
Yes, Ariel, what's the water resistance of this watch? That's what we want to know.
30 meters. looks like there's a couple of rendering issues in the article. We've had some issues. I'm going to go ahead and re-put some of the image in there. It looks like some of them didn't load.
No, some of these, that's the meteorite case. It's
cool looking, but is it worth $500,000? I mean, you can replicate this. Like we can make a metal that looks like this, right? It doesn't have to be.
I could just take a Speedmaster and a Dremel, and probably just
titanium Damascus.
You're artsy like that, huh?
Titanium Damascus would be a great way of achieving this, and it's still two different types of titanium, so it would be very corrosion resistant. But you can't tell them that it's a meteorite that contains a planetarium. That's like a pretty just cool thing to say to someone. It's a little planetarium, and it's housed in a giant, case crafted from a giant meteorite.
I mean, I've not actually memorized how long it takes for some of these planets to go around the sun, but presumably a lot of this moves really, really slowly. Be worried that like there's no running seconds hand, is there?
So
what's the
there's a tiny one in the middle.
Is that the little red arrow? Is that running seconds hand?
No, that's the sun in the middle.
The sun in the middle that's connected on the same wheel as the Earth. So that's sort of part of the 24-hour indicator.
Right. So okay. I see. I've got more questions now. So the little sun in the middle. Yeah, the little sun in the middle spins. Is that what we're saying? That's awesome. Yes. So a tiny second hand in the middle to the sun spinning. And then the little red arrow is what, the International Space Station? What's that? What's that represent?
I think it just helps you indicate the 24-hour cycle.
So is this a 24-hour watch or is it a 12-hour dial?
Oh, I see. Okay.
We don't know what the red arrow is. Has anybody noticed the red arrow in this watch?
No, I've noticed it. I noticed it. And it doesn't say on the website. You're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, sorry, I'm trying to work on this article while I'm telling you to fix the images. But that's obviously the Earth takes more than that. So I think that, again, it helps track something. Maybe it connects to the calendar on the side. I don't know. That part is, again, it's not. Yeah,
it's a mystery. It's a mystery dial.
Nobody pulled me aside and be like, Ariel, you're going to see this red arrow. You're not going to know what it is. This is what it is. But you know what was pointed is that each of these little planets are hand painted and really nerdy they are. And so if you look at them carefully, they all, again, because Christian van der Klaauw years ago made a watch called the Midnight Planetarium for Van Cleef and Arpels, which I mentioned in the article. And that one used little gems. So they were just little polished, rocks. These are actually tiny hand-painted planets. And again, look at the detail on the Earth. And that's, I don't know, millimeter and a half long or something.
Anyway, let's give this a vote. Is it a hit, a miss, or maybe 1, 2, 3, go? Hit. Maybe from Azad. This is a disgrace, right? Azad,
he didn't like my explanation of the red arrow. Azad, I'm sorry I let you down. I should have done more homework.
It's not a little airplane. If it's a red arrow, it needs to be a little airplane.
Not 24 hours. What was I thinking? Darn those images.
Azad, explain yourself.
Where's Pluto? I want Pluto back on.
It's not a planet. It's not a planet.
Now we're talking about Pluto. Well, it's a shame. It's a real shame.
Pluto is an originalist.
Yeah.
A Pluto originalist.
The old exoplanet strikes back.
No, I think it looks great.
Okay, Joe, we have an explanation. The red arrow indicates the date, month, and zodiac sign based on the Earth's position. Thank you, Joseph, but I'm fairly sure you just made that up. Yep. We do also, just before we drift into elsewhere, Aza has commented on our previous conversation about the Doxa. What if you drifted underwater into a different time zone?
Your decompression will be legendarily long. It will. Yeah.
I'm curious as to whether there is actually anywhere you can go realistically diving and cross a time zone at the same time. So if anybody knows of any good diving spots where we could actually do that, take a Doxa GMT.
India comes to mind. I don't know why.
I think
there must be somewhere.
If you think about the shape of the Earth, as you go deeper, surely all the time zones get closer together.
There we go. There's that. Yeah, do the time zones?
They must do.
Are the time zones angled? These are the questions we need answered. Are the time zones angled?
This reminds me of Gremlins when you're not supposed to feed them after midnight. I'm like, midnight where?
Good stuff, right? David, you give it a hit.
Yeah, of course. This has to be a hit.
Absolutely.
It's just earned it.
Yeah, Ariel, you obviously loved it.
Yeah. Also, don't forget how they laser etch the hour markers under the sapphire crystal so that it doesn't interrupt the dial, but there is actually a scale to read the time.
Okay, they laser. Oh, so they do. There we go. On that picture.
That should be more common.
aBlogtoWatchWeekly live on YouTube and see the images of the etched. But although there's a sun etched as well. Where's that?
Just at 12 o'clock.
Just at 12 o'clock, right. No, that's pretty cool. Ripley?
Yeah, it's got to be a hit. This is just conceptually cool, crazy executed, and I mean, I can't imagine how long it takes Neptune to make one full rotation, but how can you not like this thing?
Yeah, it's just awesome. Always loved that little planet.
It says on their website, it's some crazy amount of years, like 180 years or something. I don't remember, 140 years.
Maybe my grandchildren will see it happen.
That and your
But if you think about setting this watch is easy because they're all lined up, right? It's not like Mars is going to move faster than another one. At least we hope not. So if the watch dies, you just sort of set it to the current calendar and everything should line up. So it's like probably easier to set than a perpetual calendar.
So are we saying that when we ask the Rolex Daytona owners, do you know what that dial at 9 does? We should also issue them one. This is actually a simpler watch. This is actually easier to use. Get rid of your Daytona and use this. That is a better watch, let's face it.
Hey, more people know what Jupiter is.
Cool. Right. Next up is going to be, if I can get the page to load, is going to be this. Also, Ariel, you have had a look at this watch, and this is the hands-on Kross Studio Marco Tedeschi MT1 chronometer tourbillon 7 jours watch. So it loses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It loses 7 points because it's got 7 more words after the first 3. Your watch is only allowed to be 3 names long. So it starts on a -7. But other than that, what is so special about this watch?
So this is like the new entry-level watch from Kross Studio. The founder, Marco Tedeschi, who is actually a pretty good engineer, decided to put his name on the watch, which is a nice idea. I mean, I think after Rexhep from Acrivia did that, everyone's like, oh, we need to do that too. And it makes sense. It makes a better connection between
just
the
waiting
buyer.
for John Zenith to put his name on his watch.
John Zenith. This is a pretty nice movement that does some cool stuff. First of all, the case doesn't have a traditional crown. You sort of spin the back similar to you'd wind like a Ulysses Freak. And there's this inset pusher on the side of the watch, and that toggles between winding mode and setting the time mode for sort of the wheel on the back. So it's a pretty good system. As the name of the watch implies, it's got a week of power reserve, which is a nice long time. I would have liked for there to be a power reserve indicator, but as part of that skeletonization, which is actually really nicely done, a lot of hand finishing, you can see some of the mainspring barrel. So in a rough way, you can actually kind of see how wound it is. Yes, it has a flying tourbillon in there. Again, in the scheme of these types of watches, it's pretty well priced. It's, I think, about 68,000 Swiss francs. So, it's got that under the 100,000 mark that I think a lot of people are looking for. It's comfortable. It's got this easy strap detachment system and all that. Again, it's not trying to be for everyone, but it's a nice original movement with some interesting, performance on there. It's a mixture of comfortable but also showy. I enjoyed it. And again, I also have, been following Marco and his work for a long time. It's this or that crazy, Star Wars prop box that they make for the mega fan.
And interestingly, you can wear the watch 180 degrees the other way around if you like. If you prefer your tourbillon at the top rather than the bottom, you can just put the strap on the other way around because it looks just as good.
I know. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny.
We're at 180 degrees the other way around. Good stuff. Right. Let's give it some hit miss maybe treatment on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Maybe hit. Maybe right as ad hit. Why?
I think they've done a really good job with the finishing on that skeletonization and the movement. It's a good looking watch. Interesting case as well. I'm actually quite surprised how domed the crystal is for how legible it looks as well. So they've done obviously a good amount of anti-reflective coating on that crystal. It looks great.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is it am I just like feeling that this is like the Pebble watch or something, but with a movement in it? I'm just getting those kind of vibes.
I was thinking like an iCopod, but just like done absolutely to the T's. Yeah.
David?
I'm not too moved by it, but yeah, it's just a maybe. If this is your, how much is it?
$68,000 or Swiss francs.
Holy moly, that's a lot. Well, I hope they move them all. I hope they find good homes, but this one is not for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Ariel?
I mean, I like it. I mean, the watch that they made this year that's very weird for me is they made and it's much more expensive, a Harry Potter watch with... Well, there's a tourbillon, and around the cage of the tourbillon are those. What is that game? Quidditch, the broom riders.
Quidditch, yes, that's yeah. Oh,
and
there we go.
I am not I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, but for me, that's slightly. So when I was like this elegant, nice thing, and like the Harry Potter orbital tourbillon, this one just won very easily.
Okay, that's Game of Thrones. We're on the Kross website. That is Transformers Rise. I mean, presumably he has to pay IP on all of this.
Oh, yeah.
He has to pay some sort of licensing. So they must be selling these because he presumably has to pay for it before he makes them. So it's not like...
There's ways around that. Come on.
Okay.
I don't think the Harry Potter was on their website.
I'm just having a look to see. Let's see if we can find... There's the Marco Tedeschi.
Look, lugs! You got lugs!
Yeah, you want lugs?
There were so many people complaining about not having lugs. He made a whole new case with lugs. Look at that.
Central floating tourbillon. I actually didn't realize they had quite such a wide range of watches, because the only ones I ever see spoken about are the ones, frankly, I would never even look at. Like, for example, the Space Jam collector set.
There's a
Didn't
White
even
Lotus
watch
collector set.
The White Lotus watch. That's just nuts. A Game of Thrones collector set.
Regurgitation. Talk about that now.
Yeah, okay.
Look at
13
this.
out of 10.
There are more of these than of
Tourbillon.
Speedmasters. What is happening?
What's going on here? Right. Ripley, your thoughts on this?
I quite like it. I'd want to see it in person before I pony up $68,000 or whatever, because there's also a lot of other kind of equally compelling things from their catalog. And if we want to talk about Doxa with their countless iterations, this kind of also, I couldn't choose one of these, but I think I quite like it. I think the architecture, the movement's really interesting. I sort of like the juxtaposition of this really intricate layered mechanical internal structure set inside possibly the most simple external case shape you can think of, but then it's deceptively complex as far as the winding system and the button. I quite like it. I'd be like maybe leaning towards a hit. $68,000 is a lot of money. So, this is kind of definitely one I just want to experience the proportions. But all things considered, I think this is one of the more tasteful releases from what's a vast assortment of pop culture homages.
Okay, right. Let's leave it at that. And our final, it's going to be a kind of collection review. And also, I'd like to speak about, what else did I watch in Wonders? And this is the hands-on, Celine has penned this, H. Moser and C. Endeavour Pop Collection watches. Gentlemen, did you spend much time around Moser at Watches and Wonders?
Yep, we were in there. So a bunch of these amazing watches. They had a very difficult booth for photography, at least. So we had to do all kinds of magic moves and whatever techniques to get light on these watches. But I think we made it.
Did they borrow the Baume & Mercier black? Was it Mont Blanc that had the black photography booth a couple of years ago? Did they borrow
it's
that?
just a dark space. No reflection, nothing. It's impossible.
So, what do you think? So, this is the Pop Collection multicolored.
They look like wall clocks from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah, I'm not.
And they should be
sure
priced accordingly.
I'm not sure I like the direction that Moser are going in with these.
There's a direction?
Okay, fair enough. There's not really a direction. Have they just did Richard Benck leave his notebook behind when they designed the collab? And Edward, look at all these ideas. Look at all these colours.
People will pay so much money for cheap colours.
Yeah, I mean, you turn them over, they look phenomenal, the movement, but I'm not convinced. Not convinced at all. And the tourbillon version with the minute repeater.
That's the worst.
I mean, they're all interesting, but none of them are really pretty per se. And Moser can make some really pretty watches. So if I'm spending this kind of money and the movement is done like that, why am I going to get the lurid lime green and off pink looking one? Give me any of the other ones. Give me any of the normal ones.
Has anyone
because you're rich and your brain is fried. That's why.
Can that be their slogan? We know how to make pretty watches. We just choose not to.
Have you seen the places some of these people live in? I mean, they're exactly like this. Exactly. And they even made this from stone. So it reminds you of your living room or kitchen or whatever, where everything is stone. So I can totally see the clientele for this, really.
What was it? The quote I heard the other day, which is, if you want to know what God thinks about money, look at all the people that he's given it to. Something like that.
That's pretty good.
And if you want to know what God thinks about these colours, look at the watches he's decided to put them on. Is it possible that somebody within Moser is secretly colorblind but just hasn't been tested yet? Because this is actually, the more I'm seeing these flash by, the more horrific this is.
No, it's very simple. They need to make new products. They're not allowed to, and the product development team is given no tools. I mean, this is desperation. They're like, I guess this is a new model. Can we make a new case? No. New movement? No. New materials? No. Whatever you have in the parts bin or you can find around the backyard, that's what you can use. That's what it feels like is going on.
And Yeah, it makes me sad.
It's almost like
there's a kitchen we destroyed. There's leftover parts. Use it in watches.
Yeah, it's almost like someone bought a bunch of stone,
in there too.
And then once they had the stone, they're like, well, we have to do something with it. But like it was bought on a whim, and then because there's so many, it's not even like there's just one. There's just like a whole smattering of these colorful things. And it just seems like, did they have a quota to hit for like the use of material or something like that? It just seems so bizarre and out of place.
Here's what I'm not upset that they made it, because at some point down the road, someone will call them and be like, you have that blue and green one? They're like, oh, yeah. My problem is that this is what they lead with, okay? Leave this stuff in the back. Don't even promote this stuff. Let this be like a special kind of like, oh, yeah, we made this too as an experiment. Moser, lead with something more interesting. And I guess I know I've complained about pretty much everything you've led with, your weird jokes at SIHH, and I thought they were too collegey. Now a lot of that is going to products. I made fun of your cheese watch and the one that had moss growing on it, and a lot of your jokes. But the one that copied the Apple Watch, that sold for a while. So, look who's laughing now. But guys, do we have to be angry every year? I mean, is it like something, is it a goal you have? Like where I have to do one April Fool's thing a year? Like, is that your mission?
Ripley, I think next week you probably shouldn't broadcast from in front of your stone wall, because there's every likelihood that if somebody at Moser sees this, they're coming knocking. Oh, look at that. It's amazing stone.
This might lend itself, this nice muted hue of burnt sand might make it a nice looking dial, some more restrained than what we're seeing here. I don't knock it till you've tried it. I'm sure they'll run out of different stone over there soon enough and phone me. So, coming 2026.
Yeah, from the sublime to the vulgar, there is only one step. Here, you see that step. That's Joseph's contribution in the chat. Very good. So let's give it a vote. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Miss, maybe. Azad, why is it a maybe?
I think when you look at their current collection, they definitely needed some brighter colors and something a little bit more fun for the summer. And clearly this is what they've decided to introduce, given the popularity of some of the pastel ranges that other brands have been doing over the last couple of years. I tend to agree with Ariel that they could have had something a bit more interesting leading, but clearly they've decided this is the theme for this year. And the fact that it's all made out of stones as well, I think is pretty impressive work. It's just clearly not going to be for, 90% of people's tastes. But yeah.
David?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to also point out, as you did, the stonework and all the rest of it. Because what do we want? Colors. If we don't get them, we're mad. If we get them, we're mad. So we should make up our minds sometimes. Mad. I think these are like very expensive, very very artistic products. Stuff that you buy to entertain yourself. I don't think that these are that scientific or anything like that. There's very little color science, probably none, which is a bit of a slap in the face. It is true. If you look at what Nomos is doing, they get funky with the colors, but somehow there's a little bit more science, at least there appears to be, than there is behind these. There's sort of a disconnect between the two, but again, I think it's a little bit more effort in terms of the color palette would have gone a long way, but I'm happy to see colors and I'm happy to see stone dials. So this is at least a maybe from me.
Do you think it's possible that they don't understand that in a color wheel, you're not just supposed to spin it and whatever colors line up, you pick two? The idea of a color wheel is just supposed to, there's like an arrow at the top. Let's spin the wheel. We'll make it those two. The color wheel has revealed it's like the magic 8-ball of color wheel.
I also agree with what Ripley said, that this does have major, whim purchase vibes to it. It does feel like, we just bought a bunch of stone and now we have to make dials out of it. It's so weird. It is exactly like that. We bought too many. It seemed like a great idea at first, and we just have this bunch of dials now.
This is where I find almost a moral element here, because this type of fun, whimsical stuff is good for impulse purchases. It means inexpensive watches. When this sort of like impulse, like I'll wear it for a week and forget it thing, and they try to tell us that you need to spend H. Moser money on that, it's insulting, because even people who can afford it, that's a bad idea, right? Like this should be a classic watch when you spend this level and you're like, okay, it look good today, it look good tomorrow. Maybe won't be the flashiest thing, but it'll sort of always look good. Like you not only need to be in the mood for this, you need to be like in the right head chemical space for this. And I just don't think that has that lasting element. So I think the reason I'm angry is that a watch that priced this amount, they tried to be like, oh, and by the way, we're also going to put a tourbillon in there. It's like, oh, God, make it more expensive. Who wants the minute repeater version of this? And I think that's morally why I get upset about it, because it's great to play around with this, but not at serious money like this. That's just irresponsible.
Nothing gives one the opportunity to be responsible than luxury watch purchases. It's true.
that's where we all go to when we want to show how restrained and sensible we are. Buy a watch. That's what we do.
Like the execution is really nice. The stonework is really nice. Even the cuts of stone, really, really nice. But like the end product just doesn't look high end enough. It's kind of like you went to make a McDonald's cheeseburger and then went and got the most expensive possible ingredients, some like aged Wagyu beef, and then some, Beaver's own made cheese, and then you hand forged the bun, and like you ended up creating this, $500 cheeseburger that is ultimately, at a glance, you rendered the McDonald's cheeseburger. It's just done at a price point that is absolutely ludicrous. So
this should be at Louis Erard Money Max.
And that's where you'd want it, and you'd want you'd want these kind of fun dials and stuff like that, because they are really nice looking cuts of stone. But again, this level of execution for this aesthetic and this concept just seems like very disproportionate, and I think that's where I just get the dissonance on it.
Is Archie Luxury still a thing? Is he still on the go?
He was there. I saw him at Watches and Wonders on the public day, which is apparently when he was allowed in to the premises.
Oh,
and I saw him. I saw a friend of mine walk towards me, and he was laughing, and I was like, "Hey, what's up? What's so funny?" And he said, "I just saw Archie Luxury publicly shaming all the people who were queuing up for the Rolex booth," and he just had his phone out and essentially live streaming all the people queuing up at the Rolex booth in his total like typical Archie Luxury style.
What were people queuing up at the Rolex booth for on the public day?
To walk through the tunnel walk through the tunnel and get their gift bag.
No, that's the Rolex experience, basically. It's not a watch, it's a queue. That's where it's for most people. Yeah.
It's the best company.
It's just a queue. It's a waitlist simulator.
It's a waitlist simulator. I'm just saying, I'm looking at this picture of the two Mosers on the screen, and all I'm thinking is Archie Luxury. What is the story with those watch straps? I mean, come on.
Is
what
that
have they done to them? I don't know what it is, but it's not right.
It's pretty bad. It's true. What's going on with those straps?
What's going on with that watch strap?
I said it. This is great for a lower price. I think Awake, the brand that we talk about, so Awake would be the perfect company to make. I'm sure you could still use real stone, okay? I don't think it's that expensive. These aren't precious materials, okay? Yeah. It's just two pieces, one stuck into another.
Okay. Do you think, can I survive? I'm going to get ChatGPT to write me a story. I think a short story where at the end of Watches and Wonders every year, just before the public days, so, all the high-end guys leave to go home, all the brand owners, but they have a final dinner somewhere really expensive and exclusive in Switzerland, which is probably everywhere in Switzerland and Geneva. And they all sit round a table. It's Max Busser. It's Edward Mila. It's who else would be there? It'd be Jacob from Jacob & Co. And they all sit there with their cigars and go, right, okay. And they take bets, and somebody loses the bet, and they have to make a watch for next Watches and Wonders out of something that's in the room that they're having the meal in. And that's where they got the work surface from for making these watches, because Edward lost the bet last year.
So you want Iron Chef horology. I get it.
Yeah.
What is the leather, though? Is it ostrich?
I believe so.
Why did they choose that cut for the pink watch? It just looks like it's got two warts on it or something.
Yeah. I don't know where the ostrich. I don't know what bit of the ostrich it came from.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but this is the worst end cut of it. One of them's on the seam. Even there's no texture. It's just it looks like
one is ostrich and the other one is ostboar.
It does look a bit like a witch's face.
David, joke of the week. Let's just sit there for a moment and feel that in. This
Appreciate
is
that.
ostrich. This is Ostpoor. Let's just let
but
that
not
sit
this one.
for
The
a
other
moment.
picture. I don't know how they found that. Ozzy, you had something to show? on
Sorry,
screen?
Here you go. Ostrich belly strap.
All right,
That's
okay, hold
nice,
on.
sir.
Let me-
It's from the
let's-
belly
let's-
of an ostrich. Okay.
Yeah, you
belly
need
of
more
an
than
ostrich.
like 2 random protuberances.
I've just lost. I've just
The internet couldn't handle the ostrich belly.
The internet couldn't handle it, and
That's
Azad
enough
has
internet for us
disappeared.
today.
I've got a funny feeling I've just kicked him out by mistake.
All right.
Azad, are you still there?
Classic. Oh, how would it be? Don't act like it's here. It's not here.
He showed the belly of an
Who
ostrich.
are you
that's
talking
it.
to? He's not here anymore, obviously.
He's gone backstage.
He's
okay, so I don't know how
backstage?
to. He's backstage. I'm not sure how to
You
retrieve
deported
him.
him?
Azad has deported himself.
Oh.
Azad, I'm really sorry. I've no
What a
idea
day.
what happened
It's like,
there.
was
and
there
I've
like a
no
trap
idea how
door?
to undo it.
Just falls?
He's like, shh. He carefully unzips the case and shows a little bit of ankle of ostrich belly, and suddenly the algorithm goes, "No, we must not show this." Good stuff. Right. Well, I don't know where Azad's gone. I don't know where I've
Sorry,
kicked him
Azad.
to.
Oh, you do. It's
no,
backstage.
he's coming. He's coming back in. Azad is back. He shows a little bit of an ostrich, and the whole world
You
goes.
showed too much skin for the
"This
internet. What
too
can I
much
say?
for the internet." Riverside couldn't cope, Azad.
I apologise. I have to
There
apologise.
we go. Yeah, don't do it again. That's your official red card. No
Yeah.
more ostrich belly for you. Right. Okay, that's it for our live show this week. Thank you all. It's for our show this week. The live show will continue for a few moments longer. So if you want to check that, go to BlogtoWatchWeekly Live for a bit of the post-match chat. I'm fairly sure it's going to involve ostrich belly. But other than that, thank you all very much for joining us, and we will speak to you again in a week or so's time. Goodbye.
Hey,
Bye.
Bye-bye.